The starry sea forms a boundary, and time is a monument. A young man embarks on a long journey of time and moves forward without hesitation. Group ID, male leader, 859897438. Keywords of the novel. Sheng Fu without pop-ups. Download the complete collection of Sheng Fu TXT, and read the latest chapters of Sheng Fu. Chapter 1. In Silence. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 1. In silence. After nightfall, the White Deer Academy is quiet and elegant. Even in the midst of summer, the night is as cool as water. In the library, the candlelight flickered slightly, and Yuan Jun knelt on a cattail, holding a bamboo slip in his hand. While reading meticulously, the soft radiance reflected on Yuan Jun's face, giving off an already delicate and graceful silhouette. Reading a book 100 times reveals its meaning. Before arriving here from Yushi town, which is 13,000 miles away, Yuan Jun had a deep belief in this sentence. It was not because he had listened to Mr. Confucius' teachings that he came to understand this sentence. Yuan Jun has read the content of Qing Ming Ji about 60 or 70 times, and he has already memorized it fluently. However, he still holds a bamboo slip and reads it word by word, creating an atmosphere and charm. The books record only some past events and some myths and legends, which are not the mainstream books of the White Deer Academy, nor are they among the martial arts secret books. Pure miscellaneous books. The biggest knowledge and reasoning among them is the lack of knowledge and reasoning. Perhaps Yuan Jun has a special perspective, and he loves this book very much. Behind love, there must be a reason. This reason has not been mentioned by Yuan Jun or asked by anyone else. After reading the last sentence, Yuan Jun rolled up the bamboo slip and planned to return it to its original place. Looking up, Commander Zhua Qingtang held a long sword and walked up to Yuan Jun at some point. Zhua Qingtang is the guardian commander of Bailu Academy, mainly responsible for rectifying the order of Bailu Academy and handling some confidential matters. I rarely appear on weekdays. Even if I do, I often guard the big picture on grand occasions, and there is little news coming out. Anyway, disciples of the White Deer Academy rarely encounter left Qingtang in the corridors, or by the lake of the academy. Yuan Jun casually placed the bamboo slips next to the futon. Still kneeling on the futon and looking up with some surprise, he said, "I thought the spy on that side should be a very ordinary worker or maid, but it turned out that the left commander personally appeared. Not only did he appear, but he also came with a sword." Hanging a long sword on the waist is an elegant journey of the White Deer Academy. Whether young men and women, or elderly people, there are often people hanging a long sword on their waist, passing by gracefully in the sight of others. In Yuan Jun's memory, Zhua Qingtang also had the elegant habit of hanging a long sword on his waist. Tonight, when the long sword is unsheathed, there must be some indication. Zhua Qingtang's face is slightly yellowish, and for a person in his 50s, a pale complexion may seem abnormal. Zhua Qingtang said, "I didn't expect that the missing old man would entrust such an important matter to a young man like you for execution. This is inconsistent with previous speculation. Could it be that besides being a spy, you have another background? Or do you mean, from the beginning, you were the abandoned child used by the elderly to cover up?" In Zhua Qingtang's hand, a 3-foot green blade exuded a sharp edge, and on the side of the blade, a purple and blue blade was already visible. Yuan Jun's mind is as calm as water, and for a boy of 15 or 16, his mind appears somewhat pretentious as water. But others may not know that during his years in Yushi town, 13,000 miles away, Yuan Jun often went into the deep mountains alone and went fishing alone. His mind was as calm as water, and it had become a habit. How did you know? After arriving at the academy, I worked tirelessly on books and never relaxed in my practice. I dare not say that I am a model, but I am also in the category of being average and calm. This way, it can all be discovered by people. Perhaps my disguise is not perfect enough. Yuan Jun did not explain. Left Qingtang came to him with a 3-foot green blade in hand, and he already knew that Left Qingtang had investigated numerous clues, but had not had time to summarize and confirm. If the summary is confirmed, he probably won't come to Yuan Jun's side, but rather quietly takes Yuan Jun's life in the darkness with his sword. Zhuo Qingtang said, some old memories will linger in the hearts of some old people and be deeply ingrained in their hearts. It's not cost-effective for young people like you to investigate what those old people want to know. Zhuo Qingtang's sword suddenly rose, with the blade pointing straight at the throat of Yuan Jun. He advanced slightly half an inch and saved Yuan Jun's life. Yuan Jun remained calm and said, there are always some things that some people want to know, but I also really want to know. How did you discover me? The long sword in Zhuo Qingtang's hand drooped slightly, and the sword was about to rise. I have observed every disciple in the White Deer Academy, and they all have their own hobbies, whether it's dog and horse hunting for women, reciting poetry against each other, or sparring and competing. Only you, being too ordinary and unremarkable, have never shown your youthful desires for cultivation and reading. You are not like a young person, but more like a recluse, and there is no one in this world who becomes a recluse for no reason. Yuan Jun did not investigate the truth, and he did not really practice and study well in the White Deer Academy. But he unconsciously displayed the qualities that a spy should have, and was then discovered by Zhuo Qingtang. Yuan Jun said, so, you're just doubting me, and I happen to be the only one you're doubting. So what do you plan to do? Capture me, torture me severely, and interrogate me to find out what you want to know. For example, who is the person behind me, and are some people actually still alive? Zhuo Qingtang said, I do think so. If you take the initiative to speak up, maybe there won't be anything wrong. Although such rhetoric is cliché, I think it will still be useful for young people like you. During his years in Yushi Town, Yuan Jun asked a strange question, which was whether young people could remain calm and undisturbed. At this moment, Yuan Jun realized that he seemed to be able to achieve a peaceful life. So what if you die in the library, he said with a smile. Zhuo Qingtang seemed to have heard a big joke, but he didn't laugh out loud. In the library, there was no loud noise, and in the night, the wild laughter would also remind others. He whispered, even if you have a magic weapon on your body, your cultivation in the sagging light realm is still good, but I am still one level higher than you. You have no chance of turning over. In the end, you are still a young person. The path of cultivation is divided into true spirit, hanging light, Qingsheng, Huangting, Dawangting, one step at a time, one step at a time. The hanging light has no chance of winning against Qingsheng. Maybe I'm in the same place as you. Yuan Jun's breath suddenly changed, and his vigorous energy filled his body, shattering the long sword in Zhuo Qingtang's hand. With a wave of his large sleeve, the single-sleeved green dragon rushed out with a devouring force. The movements flow like clouds and water, as if they were made in heaven. Zhuo Qingtang widened his eyes, and before he could respond, he collapsed to the ground, his internal organs shattered, and he died. Yuan Jun kneels down and sits in the futon, his posture is as stable as Mount Tai. It's time to get up, things have returned to their original place. Yuan Jun stood up and picked up Qingming Ji from the edge of Putuan, slowly walking towards the seventh bookshelf in the third row on the left, gently returning the object to its original place. Zhuo Qingtang arrived silently at the library. Yuan Jun walked out of the library silently. This is a literary book, hoping to be liked by everyone. I also hope to gradually improve my reputation. If convenient, I hope to vote in favor. Due to style reasons, my initial grades may not be very good and I may not have promotional resources, but I will persist in writing and keep moving forward like an introduction. Wenqing has a long way to go, I will walk slowly. Finally, thank you all for your support and kindness. End of this chapter. Chapter 2. Be like young people. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 2. Be like young people. After dawn, the news of Left Qingtang, the commander of the protectorate, dying in the library, spread throughout the White Deer Academy, causing panic and divergent opinions. Commander Yuan Qingshan personally arrived at the scene of the murder case and stood 3 feet away from the body of Zhuoqingtang, gazing at the futon where Yuan Jun had kneeled last night. No traces were found, and there were no meticulous footprints on the ground. As the commander, Yuan Qingshan could naturally see that the encounter between the deceased and the murderer was silent, and perhaps the two had even had a conversation. Yuan Qingshan had a pale golden complexion and a sturdy figure. Standing here, he looked like a mountain, not angry but majestic. The matter is more complicated than I imagined, perhaps it has exceeded our scope of responsibility, Yuan Qingshan said softly. Hu Bo, the second in command of the Dharma Hall, was dressed in an old Confucian attire, with a rough, bold and somewhat ugly appearance. Anyway, in a place like the Dharma Hall, there would naturally be no standard handsome person. Hu Bo carefully observed the shattered long sword and knew that the material of Zhua Qingtang's sword was extraordinary. It was made of iron cast from red gold, extremely tough. Judging from the broken texture, it was obvious that it was shattered by the opponent's strong energy, indicating the strength of the killer's strong energy. The culprit may be 2 people, but only one died, Hu Bo said. Because here, the scabbard of Zhua Qingtang's long sword was not found. Yuan Qingshan said, block the scene. No one is allowed to come to the library for 10 days. Thoroughly investigate those who have entered the library in the past 2 days. Hu Bo let out a sigh and led the members of the Dharma Hall out of the library. They divided into 10 small teams and immediately launched an operation. In this room, only Yuan Qingshan remained here alone. Looking over, no suspicious signs were found. But Yuan Qingshan believed one thing, it must be someone inside the White Deer Academy who killed Left Qingtang. For at least half a month, high-ranking officials and dignitaries without imperial capitals came to the White Deer Academy to observe the ceremony. It should be a civil war, and what caused it is what Yuan Qingshan is most confused and wants to know. A small courtyard with rugged rockeries, a simple corridor, and a plain pavilion surrounded by not too dense or sparse flowers, plants, and trees. Just 1 lake away, this courtyard is perfect. But this is just a small courtyard, not a large courtyard. After waking up, Yuan Jun continued to brew a pot of tea in the pavilion, sat upright on a chair, and tasted tea alone. The habit of drinking morning tea was developed by Yuan Jun in Yushi Town, and he will not change this habit just because he came to Bailu Academy. If disciples who come to the White Deer Academy want to live better, they only need to pay more money to live in a small courtyard. Yuan Jun doesn't think he has the demeanor of an elegant scholar, but sleeping with those men with stinky feet and sweat in a big shop is torture just thinking about it. In fact, this is very wise. Killing someone before returning to Datongpu will inevitably arouse suspicion from others. It is better to return to the yard for more personal privacy. Last night, Yuan Jun used a single-sleeve qinglong to kill Left Qingtang. Perhaps Left Qingtang was too weak to let Yuan Jun use a 2-sleeve qinglong. When he left Yushi Town, someone told him that once he entered the imperial capital and the White Deer Academy, he should not use the Green Dragon technique in any situation. If it is 1.1, with no one knowing and a certain level of certainty in one strike, the Green Dragon technique can still be used. At this moment, the courtyard door made a crisp sound, and the female deacon of the Dharma Hall, He-jin, led 3 people to break through the door and walk straight down the Qingshe corridor to come to Yuan Jun. Yuan Jun put down his teacup and stood up, saying, "What happened? Did you have people from your Dharma Hall come to visit you personally? Even if you knowingly ask, you should pretend to be indifferent." He-jin, with a tall figure and a love for silver armor, wears a sword around her waist, has a clear and beautiful face, and a posture of standing tall and looking up. She is very handsome and spirited. The people in the Dharma Hall are naturally very good at observing the surrounding environment and the people in front of them, otherwise they would not enter the Dharma Hall. He-jin habitually looked around, and the surrounding flowers, plants, and forests were a bit messy. It had been about a month since they were pruned. The pot of hot tea in the pavilion, with just the right aroma, is obviously freshly brewed. The young man in front of me, about 15 or 16 years old, looked beautiful and handsome, with a hint of being worldly. Living in such a secluded courtyard, he should be the kind of young man that other female disciples like to worship. But this young man always felt something strange, and Jean couldn't say where it was. Perhaps it was the woman's intuition that started to play tricks at this moment. Jean's eyes shone like a sharp sword, staring at Yu Wenjun and saying in a deep voice, "As far as I know, you went to the library last night." It was also last night that the leader of the guard, Left Qingtang, died. "Do you have anything to say?" A young female deacon naturally doesn't understand much about human relationships and worldly wisdom, so her questioning is straightforward. Yu Wenjun said calmly, "I have no idea about this matter. How could a homicide happen in an elegant place like a library?" Jean said seriously, "I'm asking you, not you." Yu Wenjun realized that he had lost his composure and said from Shanru Ludao, "The culprit must not be me." Jean said, "Come with us, are you innocent?" "We'll know then." Yu Wenjun let out a sigh, but didn't express much. Follow Jean out of the courtyard and head towards the square of the Dharma Hall. Along the way, Jean has been observing Yu Wenjun intentionally or unintentionally. This is a professional habit. Anyone who entered the library last night, whether it is a laborer or a disciple, is worthy of suspicion. Jin's footsteps were light and agile, and Yu Wenjun had no choice but to walk faster. On weekdays, Yu Wenjun was a slow walker, and a young girl walking so fast by his side was really not used to it. Suddenly remembered, last night Sua Qingtang said he didn't seem like a young man, which was why he was exposed. Yu Wenjun thought to himself, it seems that he needs to be a little more prominent and impulsive in the future to dispel others' doubts. He also didn't know if there was a second Left Qingtang silently observing everything in this White Deer Academy. Jean suddenly said, "You seem to firmly believe that you are innocent, it seems a bit too deliberate." Yu Wenjun raised his head to face Jin's beautiful face. With such a heroic woman, only the Dharma Hall could handle the entire White Deer Academy. Ing said, "Of course I think I am innocent because I don't have that kind of strength." Yu Wenjun's gaze never deviated from Jin's face, not to mention looking directly at him, it can only be said to appreciate Jin's beauty. Being stared at like this, Jin's face was not quite natural, because Yu Wenjun looked very handsome upon closer inspection. He pursed his lips slightly and said, "Why are you looking at me like this?" Yu Wenjun said seriously, "Because you look very beautiful." Jin's face froze and he looked straight ahead. He said seriously, "To be serious, I know you don't have that kind of strength, and I also know you are innocent. Going to the Law Hall Square later will only be a temporary walk, it will only take up some of your time." Yu Wenjun wants to show himself as a normal young person in front of Jean, and the best way to prove himself as a young person is to look directly at the young girl's face and give a few compliments. If you use a lighter tone, it may sound more like a normal young person, but Yu Wenjun is not a frivolous person, so he behaves very seriously. He also didn't understand why Jean felt that he was not serious. However, Jin's tone and attitude have already told Yu Wenjun that his recent performance was quite successful. Yu Wenjun said, "But I haven't had breakfast yet. I'm a bit hungry at the moment. I should come with you after finishing my meal." Jean didn't look at Yu Wenjun either, but still looked straight ahead. She was very afraid that she would face Yu Wenjun again and her face would turn red and her heart would beat, which would not reflect the dignity that the Dharma Hall should have. "Hold on for now, if you procrastinate for too long, Fa Tang will take care of the meal," said solemnly. Yu Wenjun was not speaking. He followed behind Jean honestly, like a young master wandering around and a scholar who knew where to go. "Anyway, no matter how you look at it, it doesn't seem like a murderer." Not long after, Fatong Square arrived. End of this chapter. Chapter 3. Interrogation and Intuition. You are listening at Novel Full. Audio. Chapter 3 Interrogation and Intuition. There are 9 people standing here, each maintaining a distance of about 3 feet to prevent these disciples from whispering. Yuan Jun is the 9th one, standing on the right edge. Next to him is a pure and charming little girl, wearing a simple cherry blossom dress and a petite figure. When she first arrived at the Fatong Square, she was also intimidated by the majestic atmosphere here. Despite the small amplitude, Yuan Jun still noticed that this innocent and charming little girl was trembling. The murderer was still present, while the innocent were in great fear. Yuan Jun found it a bit funny, but he didn't laugh because Hu Bo was standing in front of them and patrolling with unfriendly eyes. He, Jean and others stood on both sides in order to maintain order in the square. Even if it's just questioning, it's like waiting for criminal law. Hu Bo, with a rough face, was intimidated by the majestic elders, as heavy as a mountain, and the deceased was Hua Qin Tang. As a result, these young disciples were even more anxious and fearful, afraid that the people in the Dharma hall would not be able to find the culprit, so they could randomly find someone to perform the surgery or be imprisoned for a period of time. Yuan Jun stood tall in jade, waiting quietly. Hu Bo began the interrogation from the left side, with a solemn demeanor. He did not ask some very cliché questions, but stared at the young boy, hesitating to speak, making his gaze inexplicable. After the interrogation in this order, those who had looked at Hu Bo anxiously lowered their heads. Arriving at this innocent and charming little girl, Hu Bo's demeanor remained fierce. The little girl, afraid, burst into tears and sobbed softly, afraid to look at Hu Bo. "Uncle, I am innocent." In a moment of desperation, the little girl held back a funny yet helpless sentence. Hu Bo's face changed slightly and he sighed. He thought to himself that he was also an elder. Knowing that he was innocent, he even scared the little girl to tears. He felt guilty for a moment. Then he moved slightly and came to Yuan Jun. He stared at Yuan Jun with a heavy gaze like a mountain. Fear, Yuan Jun once had it, but that was also a childhood memory. Since practicing the green dragon technique, he has never been afraid of fear again. Encountering the first and last person who was not afraid of himself, Hu Bo became interested. After a typical killer kills, their throat becomes sweet due to nervousness. After a second-rate killer kills, they will find a place to drink a muffled drink, and after sleeping, they can recover to their original state. After a first-rate killer kills, he is as stable as Mount Tai as you are. Shouldn't you explain it? The people around, whether they were disciples of the White Deer Academy or He Jin from the Huanfa Hall, instinctively looked at Yuan Jun. The 8 disciples who were questioned dared not look carefully, but only searched with the corner of their eyes. Hu Bo stood there, putting too much pressure on them. Yuan Jun really wants to pretend to be very scared and follow the trend, but he is not afraid and cannot pretend. If he tries to pretend forcefully, he will be seen by Hu Bo instead. Looking into Hu Bo's eyes, he calmly replied, "Perhaps I have a lot of courage. When I was very young, I went hunting in the mountains and was still alone. I was also forcibly arranged by my elders to fight against underage dragons and snakes. So it's not surprising to see anything strange. Some disciples of the White Deer Academy have a prominent family background and have had cultivation resources that ordinary people cannot reach since childhood. They fight against young dragons and young tigers whose skeletons have not yet grown. Warm nourishment of muscles, bones, blood and qi can better exercise courage." Hu Bo knew all of these, but he didn't expect that a delicate young man like Yuan Jun would also have such a bloody childhood, which was not in line with his temperament. Hu Bo wants to know more, and a brave person naturally dares to answer his questions. "What do you think of the unfortunate situation of the head of the nursing home?" Yuan Jun felt the strange gaze around him, and he never thought it would be like this. Even the innocent and lovely little girl around him was secretly scrutinizing him. After thinking for a moment, he gently replied, "I have no contact with the left commander. I have learned about the principles of righteousness and practice, and the left commander has never given me any guidance. I don't know how to view it either. But ultimately, it was the ancestors and elders of my White Deer Academy who died, and I also felt very uncomfortable in my heart. Yuan Jun did not shy away from the important and just told the truth. The truth is beyond refutation. Hu Bo suddenly smiled and said, "Young man, I really appreciate you. I wonder which expert you are under." Yuan Jun whispered, "Qingmei Forest, under the tutelage of Li Xiongyan." Although Li Xiongyan did not hold high authority in the White Deer Academy, his disciples worked hard and his legitimate disciple Lu Qinghua is expected to enter the White Deer Pavilion for cultivation. It's just a possibility, there are many people who have the potential, and most of them cannot pass the entry-level assessment of the White Deer Pavilion. Its assessment is also known as the Return to the Sea meeting. Hu Bo asked, "What's your name?" "Yuan Jun." Hu Bodeo said, "With your courage, you should also be able to obtain the true biography of Li Xiongyan like Lu Qinghua, that cold and charming girl. Why have I never heard of you before?" Yuan Jun said, "Senior sister Qinghua is talented and has the appearance of a young phoenix. It is only natural for her to receive the true transmission from her master, which is well received by everyone. I am lazy by nature, and when it comes to practicing, I can't bear the hardships. Therefore, I have become a leisurely cloud and wild crane in the green plum forest, and I feel at ease. Perhaps my master has not paid attention to me." Hu Bo glanced at Yuan Jun and was the first one he met at the White Deer Academy to speak so reasonably of his irresponsibility. Most of the disciples who don't work hard are either playboy disciples or young disciples who know they have no hope of advancing further. It is rare for someone like Yuan Jun to perfectly blend recklessness with his own temperament. Hu Bo chuckled and said, "Perhaps you have good talent, haven't you considered entering the White Deer Pavilion?" Yuan Jun replied in confusion, "Should have been a suspect. How did the commander ask me these questions?" Hu Bodeo said, "Just ask casually. Most of the young people in the Dharma Hall are silent and rigid, and rarely encounter anomalies like you. It's just that they're interested for a moment. Please don't be surprised." Yuan Jun exclaimed, "I can't even rank among the top in the Qingmei Forest, so naturally I won't be able to participate in the Return to the Sea meeting, let alone join the White Deer Pavilion. The leader is really ruining me." Hu Bo said, "I've heard from others that you really enjoy reading ancient books in the library. I've passed by the library many times, and it seems like I've seen you a few times. As far as I know, the young people in the Qingmei Forest are not interested in books and only know how to bury themselves in hard work. You are considered an outsider. Since you enjoy learning the principles of righteousness, why don't you go to Kong Changji's sect to practice? It's a feng shui treasure land where you sing the wind, play the moon, and dance with your writing in ink." Yuan Jun did not expect to unintentionally gain the appreciation of Hu Bo, and he was not quite used to it. His performance at the White Deer Academy has always been mediocre. He was discovered by Zhou Qintang last night and questioned by Hu Bo today. Could it be that something unexpected has happened to him recently? Perhaps, waves will rise. Yuan Jun responded gently, "When I first entered the White Deer Academy, due to my mediocre qualifications, I didn't want any other places, so I went to the Green Plum Forest. The threshold for accepting apprentices in Qingmei Forest is the lowest, and anyone who can pass the preliminary examination at Bailu Academy can enter. It is also the most bitter and shabby place, without a decent tower decoration. The White Deer Academy distributes resources, only thinking of the Green Plum Blossom Forest at the end, and the last one sent is naturally the one selected by the other courtyards. Fortunately, a slightly famous Lu Qinghua also emerged from the Qingmei Forest." Hu Bo smiled helplessly and said, "I see. I'm really sorry to ask you to share such an unpleasant past. Li Xiongyan never paid attention to you, and you never cared about Li Xiongyan. It's really an interesting thing. The interrogation has come to an end. I apologize for disturbing your morning meditation. On behalf of the Dharma Hall, you can return to your respective sects now." Yuan Jun felt a little confused. He glanced at the ritual door of the Dharma hall in front of him for some unknown reason, and then bowed with both hands in agreement with everyone. He then turned around and slowly retreated. The others finally breathed a sigh of relief in their hearts, and the innocent and lovely little girl held her chest with her jade hand and took a deep breath for a long time before gradually letting go. Hu Bo looked at Yuan Jun's back and said to the people around him, "Actually, I feel that the child is the murderer, but he doesn't have the strength to kill Zhou Qintang. This is just an intuition. Do you think it's strange?" No one around answered, and I don't know how to respond, like a mud and wood sculpture. Hu Bo said in disappointment, "It's just that, even though I said it, you don't understand." End of this chapter. Chapter 4. I'm afraid of trouble. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 4. I'm afraid of trouble. Leaving the Fatong Square, Yuan Jun did not breathe a sigh of relief, and the death of Zhou Qintang would not come to an end. As usual, first go to the cafeteria to have breakfast, then go to the Qingmei forest to listen to classes. Every morning, Li Xiongyan organizes his disciples together, imparting scriptures and teachings. Even if it's just words, it's enough to make some disciples suddenly enlightened. There are 70.2 disciples in Qingmei forest, and Yuan Jun is the laziest one among them. Now that the return to the sea meeting is approaching, Lu Qinghua is the most promising representative of Qingmei Lin's achievements in the return to the sea meeting, taking advantage of the situation and entering the White Deer Pavilion. It is not easy for Li Xiongyan to give advice to other disciples, and as for the 4 words of teaching by example, it may only be understood by Lu Qinghua alone. After having breakfast, Yuan Jun walked for a stick of incense and arrived at the Qingmei forest. The Green Plum Forest, as its name suggests, is located in the Green Plum Forest. There is a simple courtyard. For other local academies, this simple courtyard can be regarded as a carved beams and painted rafters, which is located in a treasure land of geomancy. Compared to the other courtyards of the White Deer Academy, the Green Plum Forest is indeed a bit shabby. Fortunately, the cultivation atmosphere here is good. There is neither the bullying of aristocratic children nor the formation of cliques among disciples. Only silent and hard work is needed, hoping that one day, one can achieve remarkable success. Entering the courtyard, Yuan Jun knelt and sat in the last row as usual, adjacent to the tallest Zhang Benchu. Yuan Jun looked up and did not notice that senior sister Lu Qinghua was located on the left and right sides of the master. It had been half a month and he had not seen senior sister's true appearance. In his thoughts, he should have made a breakthrough in the realm of hanging light. Zhang Benchu whispered, "Junior brother, why did you come?" At that time, the master personally called for you, but you were missing. Yuan Jun thought to himself that the news about the Qingmei forest was indeed not very clear. The death of Zhou Qintang had spread throughout the White Deer Academy, but it did not reach the Qingmei forest. "Master, shouldn't you be unhappy?" whispered Zhang Benchu said with a worried expression. "I didn't say much, it's just that my face doesn't look very good." Yuan Jun let out a sigh, without much reaction. He thought to himself that his natural talent in the Green Plum Forest could only be considered ordinary and should not be taken seriously. It was reasonable that Master should not be angry for his hopeless disciple. As a person resembling a spy, Yuan Jun hid well in the White Deer Academy and only showed his true strength when he fought against Zhou Qintang. In the Qingmei forest, Yuan Jun's cultivation is ordinary, neither up nor down. Within the realm of light, he cannot dominate or be in the lower reaches. He is lazy and has an easy-going personality. No matter how you look at it, it doesn't seem like a promising young person. On the high platform, Li Xiongyan, dressed in white clothes, was a refined and handsome middle-aged man. Li Xiongyan could be considered the most hard-working and elegant person in the generations of the White Deer Academy. He had a sword eyebrow and starry eyes, a reserved sharpness, and after finishing the last short passage of the scripture, he waved his hand slightly, indicating that his disciples could get up and leave. Only one sentence was said. "Yuan Jun, stay." Today, Yuan-jun arrived late, and this is not the first time he has been late. Since entering the Qingmei forest a year ago, Yuan-jun's morning classes have been delayed 7 times. And 7 times, they all overslept, and those who came late had to do odd jobs for 3 days to offset their sins. However, in the past, Li Xiaoyan had never paid attention to Yuan-jun, let alone left Yuan-jun alone. Today, it seems a bit different, and coincidentally, Li Xiaoyan's face is not good looking either. The disciples who walked out from the front looked at Yuan-jun with mockery, hidden worries, and schadenfreude in their eyes. The young girls nervously glanced at Yuan-jun, as if saying that they should admit their mistakes later. Li Xiaoyan knelt on the high platform, overlooking everything in the courtyard. Zhang Benchu wanted to give Yuan-jun some advice, but due to the authority of his master Li Xiaoyan, he ultimately chose not to mention it and reluctantly patted Yuan-jun's shoulder, indicating that he wanted to take care of himself. The cultivation resources in Qingmei Forest are not abundant, and if Yuan-jun is missing, it would be a shallow gain for the remaining people. After waiting for everyone to leave, Yuan-jun stood up and slowly walked forward, bowing with both hands and saying, "What's the matter with master leaving me? I thought to myself, I shouldn't have driven myself out of the green plum blossom forest." Li Xiaoyan picked up the teacup next to the futon and took a sip of tea before looking at Yuan-jun. He carefully glanced at it and asked, "Did you come late again because you overslept?" Yuan-jun explained truthfully, "That's not true. Last night, the head of the courtyard guard, Left Qingtang, died in the library. The murderer is unknown. This morning, all the people who have been to the library for nearly 2 days in the law hall were called over and asked questions in order. So it delayed." After hearing this, Li Xiaoyan responded strangely, "The green plum blossom forest is indeed located in a remote area. No matter what happens in the academy, we always know it later. Yuan-jun likes to go to the library, which is well known in the Qingmei forest. As a result, he gained a reputation for loving literary talent but not martial arts." Li Xiaoyan said, "In half a month, it will be the return to the sea meeting. Your senior sister has been looking down lately and needs a young person to accompany her. My disciple, you are the laziest and the most stable and literary. How about serving as a sword attendant for your senior sister for a period of time? The sword attendant is the person who worships the sword. The sword master is in front, the sword attendant is at the back, and when going out, it is very dignified and a symbol of the upper class." Yuan-jun did not refuse and thought for a moment before saying, "Senior sister, it is safer to choose a female senior sister or a female senior sister as the sword attendant. As a man, becoming the senior sister's sword attendant will inevitably cause a lot of gossip and disturb her mood. A woman in her 20s and 80s cannot withstand rumors and gossip." Li Xiaoyan said, "This makes sense, but outsiders won't know either. Your senior sister is practicing in the Qinyan garden without anyone bothering her. After you go, it's natural for you to do the same. Isn't it true that you don't want to become the sword attendant of Qinghua?" Yuan-jun paused and said, "I have no intention of this, it's just that men and women are not compatible. Furthermore, I am completely ignorant of swordsmanship and I am afraid I cannot undertake this important task. The way of literature and martial arts is to relax and unwind. Senior sister has been feeling down lately, perhaps due to excessive pressure and a tense mind. It should be enough to relax her mind." Li Xiaoyan looked at Yuan-jun seriously for the first time and smiled, saying, "It seems that you have a good understanding of the way to take care of oneself." Yuan-jun replied shyly, "I understand a little." Li Xiaoyan's impression of Yuan-jun has always remained lazy and casual, and today is also the first time he has said so much to Yuan-jun. This is also the first time I feel the uniqueness of this child. He doesn't have a better candidate either. The other disciples under him work hard but don't understand the elegance of literature. Yuan-jun is capable of handling this matter, but there is a strong refusal in his words. Maybe you can, you'll know after you go. Master insisted on this, and Yuan Jun had nothing to say, so he nodded and agreed. Suddenly, he asked, I'm late today, so I don't have to do odd jobs for 3 days to offset my guilt, do I? Li Xiaoyan said, no need, it's understandable, and I'm not an unreasonable person either. Yuan Jun let out a sigh and let go of one thing in his heart. Qinyan Garden is located on the northeast side of the Qingmei Forest. The garden is beautiful and exquisite, with small bridges and flowing water for people to listen to the mournful cries of 100 birds. Accompanying the master to Qinyan Garden, Yuan Jun took a rough look and felt that the scenery here lacked a touch of human touch compared to Yushi Town. Lu Qinghua, in his 20s and 80s, has a slender figure, picturesque eyebrows and eyes, with long black hair standing vertically at his waist. There is often a cold and charming aura in his eyes, and upon closer inspection, one can also see that his childishness has not dissipated. Such a cold and pure girlishness is rare to see. Li Xiaoyan called out slightly, Qinghua, from now on, he will be your sword attendant. Lu Qinghua moved her lotus step slightly and approached Yuan Jun. She did not hand her sword to Yuan Jun. She bowed slightly and said, thank you, junior brother, for your hard work. Yuan Jun replied, senior sister's return to the sea meeting is approaching. I will work hard and it will be okay. Without much instruction, Li Xiaoyan brought Yuan Jun here and left. Lu Qinghua's recent state of mind has been very stable, but her state of mind is somewhat incomplete. Li Xiaoyan doesn't know how to guide her. I hope that Yuan Jun's literary talent and elegance can help Qinghua overcome her difficulties. After Li Xiaoyan left, Lu Qinghua's face slightly changed and she said, actually, I don't need your company. I just want to be alone and quiet. The upcoming return to the sea meeting has left this 28-year-old girl mentally exhausted. She only wants to be quiet alone, but she can't use a little girl's temper with her master, but she can use a little girl's temper with Yuan Jun. Yuan Jun replied truthfully, actually, I don't really want to come either, but master insisted that I come, so I came. If I leave here, master will inevitably blame me harshly. In my opinion, I am idle here. You do your job, I do my job, don't disturb each other, okay? Lu Qinghua gave Yuan Jun a faint glance and asked, you feel ashamed to be my sword attendant? There are many people in Qingmei Forest who are willing to become Lu Qinghua's sword attendants, but they do not have the opportunity to follow Lu Qinghua. In common sense, they can also go further in the White Deer Academy. Li Xiaoyan devoted all his efforts to Lu Qinghua alone. Whether the return to the sea was successful or unsuccessful, his future prospects should not be too bad. Yuan Jun frowned slightly and said, I have had a lot of trouble these past few days. The head of the guard died in the library, and I often read ancient books in the library, becoming one of the suspects. Returning to the green plum blossom forest, I thought I could leisurely relax, but my master took me to my senior sister's side. I'm just afraid of trouble. Lu Qinghua has a very good appearance. If other men were around Lu Qinghua, they would naturally not be afraid of trouble, only afraid that there might not be enough trouble. Junior brother, you're very unique, Lu Qinghua suddenly said. Yuan Jun paused and replied, I've always felt like I'm ordinary. Lu Qinghua smiled and said, anyway, just as you said, don't disturb each other. Yuan Jun did not respond and walked straight to the pavilion, kneeling peacefully on the cattail. I originally wanted to brew a pot of tea and pour it myself, but there is no tea here, and senior sister is not the one who drinks tea. Then he closed his eyes and fell into meditation, motionless like a mountain. Lu Qinghua was in the yard, holding a long sword and repeating her sword moves, unconsciously warming up her sword spirit. She danced her sword according to her heart's desire, with a graceful posture and boundless scenery. From beginning to end, the two only had some spare time to communicate during meals, and remained silent from beginning to end. After nightfall, Yuan Jun knelt and finished his meditation. He got up and looked up at the starry sky. Stargazing, Yuan Jun is not very skilled in his studies and has a slight understanding of it. Since arriving at the White Deer Academy, Yuan Jun has been relying on his inexperienced stargazing skills to deduce and calculate, hiding his divine beauty. Looking at the stars tonight, there is something missing in the southeast corner. This time, Yuan Jun couldn't keep his mind at ease. He remembered last night when Zhua Qingtang came holding a long sword, but without a scabbard. So, where did the scabbard go? Is there any hidden content in the scabbard waiting to be discovered? Did Zhua Qingtang make two preparations for the difficulty? Lu Qinghua poured a cup of warm water on the side, and the corner of her eye noticed the less obvious anxiety on Yuan Jun's face. He spoke up and said, "I have heard of you, who love literary talent but not martial arts. After you come here, you naturally cannot go to the library to read ancient books and Taoist collections as usual. You've been sitting on your knees and meditating all day, and finally you can't help it anymore." Lu Qinghua has only a partial understanding of literary talent, and knows that those who are addicted to books are incurable. Therefore, he asked. Yuan Jun whispered, "If I go out tonight, Master should not notice. Can senior sister keep it a secret? I will return before dawn." Lu Qinghua said, "Sure, but I have one condition." Yuan Jun said, "Senior sister, please explain and try not to make things difficult for me." Lu Qinghua thought to herself that this junior brother is really strange and uninteresting. Ing said, "I want to leave Qingyan Garden with you and go to the library with you to take a look. I have heard that there are witty sayings in the book that can relieve my worries. If you happen to be a scholar like me, junior brother, you can also answer my questions and clarify my doubts." Yuan Jun took a deep breath through his nostrils and his face remained unchanged. From Lu Qinghua's perspective, this is a pure expression of disgust. In the green plum blossom forest, Yuan Jun is the first person to despise her. The little temper of the 28-year-old girl immediately rushed up, biting her teeth tightly and asking, "Is it because junior brother still thinks I'm in trouble?" Yuan Jun doesn't know how to answer. He won't go to the library tonight, but will go to the place where Zhua Qingtang lives to become a gentleman on the beam and search for his sword scabbard. Women always have branches at the most critical moments. What does Yuan Jun do about this? Thinking deeply, he said, "The head of the courtyard guard has just died, and the library, as the crime scene, has been sealed off. I have to go to other places." Lu Qinghua suddenly realized and let out a sigh before continuing to ask, "Why does junior brother look disgusted at me?" Yuan Jun didn't want to argue with Lu Qinghua about this matter and whispered, "I just want to go out for a walk and relax. Senior sister, with her beautiful appearance, you and I will appear together, and being seen by others will inevitably cause rumors. I don't want to have unnecessary details, I'm afraid of trouble." Lu Qinghua was speechless for a moment, and in the end, she was still in trouble. "I don't know if it's for a gamble or for other reasons," but Lu Qinghua firmly said, "I'm not afraid, why should I be afraid, junior brother?" Yuan Jun. "So, let's go." Lu Qinghua followed behind Yuan Jun, feeling frustrated and unable to see for a moment who was their sword attendant. End of this chapter. Chapter 5. Returning to the Sheath. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 5. Returning to the Sheath. The White Deer Camp is located in the southeast corner of the academy and is the residence of the guards. Zhua Qingtang has a separate courtyard in the White Deer Camp. It is already inconvenient for Yuan Jun to bring Lu Qinghua, and it is even more inconvenient to find out which courtyard Zhua Qingtang lives in. Fortunately, although Lu Qinghua is well known, few people have seen him at the White Deer Academy, and he did not attract many strange looks along the way. When he arrived at the White Deer Camp, Yuan Jun realized that he was late because the people of the Dharma Hall had already surrounded the place where Zhua Qingtang lived, and the surrounding area was impassable. Yuan Qingshan and Hu Bo, the two masters of the Dharma Hall, also attended the scene in person. The flames were shining brightly here, and the solemn faces of the members of the Dharma hall could be clearly seen. At this moment, He-jin walked out of the courtyard with a few people, bowed slightly with both hands, and said to Yuan Qingshan dejectedly, "Sorry, we have searched inside and out 3 times, but we have not found the sword scabbard of the left commander. We have also asked his colleagues, but we have never seen the whereabouts of the sword scabbard." Yuan Qingshan was already a bit melancholic when he encountered such a tough case, with no clues to tell, and the sword scabbard became a thing without a trace. With a bitter smile, he said, "This is really strange. If we can't find the killer for now, let's not talk about it. We can't even find the sword scabbard. Is it because our Dharma hall is incompetent?" He-jin lowered his head again and remained silent. Hu-bo smiled strangely on the side and said, "Don't bother with Wai-jin. Even we are powerless in this case, let alone these young people." Yuan-jun watched from a distance, and since Yuan Qingshan and the others had already arrived, his arrival here was meaningless. "Senior sister, let's go and take a look elsewhere," said Lu Qinghua softly. Lu Qinghua's curiosity has also risen. Since Yuan-jun despised her, Lu Qinghua has suspected that Yuan-jun has an unspeakable secret. Now that she has come here, Lu Qinghua is even more certain that Yuan-jun has an unspeakable secret. Looking at Yuan-jun very seriously, even though his face was calm, Lu Qinghua still asked, "Most of the night, where didn't you come? You must have come here. Is it not that Commander's Wa Qingtang really died at your hands? You are not only a suspect, but also the murderer. Am I right?" Lu Qinghua wanted to see if Yuan-jun's face would have some ripples after asking a question, but Lu Qinghua was disappointed. Yuan-jun calmly replied, "Yes, I am the culprit. By the way, I also brought you to the victim's house, senior sister." Naturally, senior sister became an accomplice. Lu Qinghua gave Yuan-jun a displeased glance. Yuan-jun didn't take it seriously and turned to leave. Lu Qinghua had to follow behind Yuan-jun. Such an disobedient sword attendant made Lu Qinghua feel very unhappy. After walking a few steps, I met an elderly person walking towards me. The old man has a strong physique, wearing a spacious black brocade robe, with steady steps and a majestic appearance. His temperament is dignified with a hint of cunning, and his eyes are bright like stars. Upon seeing this, Yuan-jun and Lu Qinghua bowed deeply and said in unison, "I have seen the 3 elders. Gu Yong, the 3rd elder, is different from the other elders who sit quietly in their own secluded area. Gu Yong really likes to take a walk in the White Deer Academy and even likes to lead his big black dog around the academy. However, he didn't take the big black dog for a walk tonight. Most students are extremely flattering and polite when they meet Gu Yong. Among the 3 elders of the White Deer Academy, only Gu Yong, the 3rd elder, did not accept a legitimate disciple. The remaining 2 elders each have 1 or 2 legitimate disciples under their respective sections. Therefore, Gu Yong has become a coveted treasure in the eyes of many young students. They thought to themselves that one morning or night, when they met Gu Yong, he felt that he had a good foundation and accepted him as his disciple. There are countless young students with such ideas. It is a great honor and a great fortune to become the legitimate disciple of the elder. In the future, at least one can seek a position in the imperial capital. As for the cultivation of martial arts, it goes without saying that following the 3 elders and cultivating to the level of Chengsheng is extremely stable. Gu Yong glanced at Yuan-jun and Lu Qinghua, and had some impression of Yuan-jun. He often saw Yuan-jun appearing near the library, but could not name this young man. "I don't want to know his name either. There are too many young people who want to be remembered by Gu Yong. Gu Yong simply doesn't remember a single name, which is also convenient." He smiled and said, "I just finished my meal. I'm walking and trying to digest my food. You two don't need to be polite." Yuan-jun and Lu Qinghua just lifted their heads. Yuan-jun remained calm as usual, while Lu Qinghua was a bit nervous. The three elders were powerful figures in the White Deer Academy, which had to make Lu Qinghua nervous. Gu Yong had already seen the soaring flames from the White Deer camp and asked Yuan Jun, "What is the situation there?" Yuan Jun thought carefully and said, "The people of the Dharma Hall seem to have gone to the place where the left commander lives to search for evidence, but they seem to have found nothing." Gu Yong nodded and said, "Got it. I'll go take a look. You little couple, let's continue strolling." Immediately, Lu Qinghua's pretty face turned red and she didn't know what to say. The three elders chuckled and said, "The girl's blush has surpassed all sweet words." Yuan Jun. After Gu Yong had walked away, Yuan Jun said to Lu Qinghua, "Actually, this is what I think is the trouble. Being misunderstood by others is not important to me. After all, I am a man, and for senior sister, it is still somewhat unfavorable." Fortunately, it was the third elder who believed so. Lu Qinghua blushed and whispered, "Don't think of going anywhere else. You are my sword attendant, and there is absolutely no possibility between you and me." Yuan Jun replied honestly, "I also think so myself." Lu Qinghua snorted lightly, Yuan Jun walked ahead, and Lu Qinghua continued to follow behind. It's still a bit early to return to Qingyan Garden at this moment, and Yuan Jun really wants to know if the Dharma Hall will gain anything tonight. Yuan Jun is already calculating in his heart how to deal with his exposed identity and how to escape from the difficulties of the White Deer Academy. Coming and going are all troublesome matters, not to mention Lu Qinghua. After walking for a while, Yuan Jun took Lu Qinghua into a pavilion and rested for a while. Tonight was supposed to be a bright moon with sparse stars, but several thick black clouds appeared on the night sky, blocking some of the starlight. These black clouds also cut off the possibility of Yuan Jun using stargazing to deduce calculations. Sitting on the stone chair, touching the stone table, the pavilion was silent. Yuan Jun thought to himself, if only there was a cup of tea now. Gu Yong walked straight all the way to the White Deer camp. Yuan Qingshan and Hu Bo saw this and bowed in half in order. Yuan Qingshan respectfully said, "I have seen the senior." Gu Yong glanced at the place where Zhua Qingtang lived and also at Yuan Qingshan's unattractive expression. He smiled and asked, "Why, even you, Yuan Qingshan, have such a gloomy expression? Isn't it that there is no evidence at Zhua Qingtang's home?" Yuan Qingshan smiled bitterly and said, "Yes, we are looking for the sword scabbard left by Zhua Qingtang, but we searched all over and couldn't find it. If you bring that big black dog over tonight, maybe you can still help." Gu Yongru smiled and said, "If that's the case, I don't need my dog for such a small matter anymore. I'll help you." Hu Bo immediately flattered and said, "If you personally take action, Elder San, we can definitely find the scabbard." Gu Yong smiled and carefully looked at Zhua Qingtang's residence. He reached out with one hand, revealing a powerful and genuine element in his palm, roaring with a faint sound of swords. Yuan Qingshan and Hu Bo envied Gu Yong's strong true Yuan cultivation, and all their envy was written in their eyes, but their cultivation was also enviable. Gu Yong drank lightly and said, "Return to the sheath." The blue stone floor in the center of the courtyard suddenly cracked open with a loud bang, and a black sword scabbard burst out of the ground in an instant, flying into Gu Yong's hands with lightning speed. Hu Bo quickly flattered again and said, "As soon as the third elder takes action, he knows if there is one." Yuan Qingshan also flattered and said, "The old master is as brave as before, and the younger generation admires him immensely." After Gu Yong held the sword scabbard in his hand, he realized something was wrong. Inside the scabbard, there was a code written by Jin Yuan. Gu Yong was not good at cracking code words, but he could still detect such simple code words. There is a gentleman who reads extensively. With such a simple code word, Gu Yong immediately thought of the young man who often wandered around the library. At that time, he also ran into that young man by chance, and in that moment, Gu Yong understood everything. If it weren't for this sword scabbard still here, Yuan Jun tonight would probably not have come to this White Deer camp. I thought to myself, how could the partisan disputes in the court spread to the White Deer Academy? Gu Yong was extremely disliked by spies, but he still had some impression of that young man, not to mention dislike him. I didn't expect that little doll to hide so deep. Handing the sword scabbard to Yuan Qingshan, he smiled knowingly and said, "It's just a matter of raising a finger, I'm sorry you flattered me so much." At the moment when he handed the sword scabbard to Yuan Qingshan, Gu Yong unconsciously modified the code language. With his cultivation, he supported the beam and changed the pillar under the eyes of Yuan Qingshan and Hu Bo, and neither of them would notice, let alone modify the code language. Change it to "Some scumbags," read extensively. Gu Yong said, "You guys are busy, I'm going to start walking back." Yuan Qingshan and Hu Bo half bowed again and flattered, "Take your time." Gu Yong turned around and left, his expression fixed, and a golden radiance appeared in his little eyes. This was the martial arts eye, and at first glance, he saw Yuan Jun and the girl doll silently in the pavilion. Could it be that they were still making a scene? Then, Gu Yongjing walked straight towards the pavilion. End of this chapter. Chapter 6. How about raising a dog for me? You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 6. How about raising a dog for me? The thick black clouds in the night sky drifted elsewhere, and starlight appeared. Just as Yuan Jun wanted to observe the stars, the third elder Gu Yong came to this pavilion. Yuan Jun had no choice but to stand up again with Lu Qinghua and bow to Gu Yong. I have seen the three elders. Yuan Jun tried his best to keep his mind calm. Before the people from the Dharma Hall came, Yuan Jun had not yet been exposed. Gu Yongzi smiled and said, "You two young people, as I've told you before, don't be too polite. I'm not one of those corrupt scholars." Yuan Jun whispered, "You may not accept our etiquette, but we cannot refuse it. As younger generations, we cannot break the rules." Gu Yong sat in the chair next to Yuan Jun and nodded, saying with a smile, "That's a grand statement. I have some impression of you. I often see you near the library, and you really enjoy reading." Lu Qinghua replied on behalf of Yuan Jun, "Yes, he really enjoys reading and has neglected his studies. It's an incomprehensible anomaly." Seeing a big shot, Lu Qinghua also wanted to talk to Gu Yong duo and leave an impression. Gu Yong nodded slightly, gesturing for the young couple to sit down and speak. Yuan Jun didn't show any signs of separation and sat down first, followed by Lu Qinghua. "It's our honor to sit in the same pavilion as you, but unfortunately we're missing a pot of good tea or wine right now. Actually, it's Yuan Jun himself who wants to drink tea now and is on the verge of exposure. Yuan Jun really wants to taste tea and find a way." Gu Yong took a serious look at Yuan Jun, and his appearance was quite good. He was also considered an experienced person in terms of social relationships and worldly wisdom. He smiled and said, "Young people like to drink alcohol, why do you like to drink tea?" Yuan Jun thought for a moment and replied, "Because there is a prohibition on alcohol in the academy, and I myself don't like drinking." Gu Yong laughed repeatedly and said, "I have forgotten that you are all students and the future pillars of the human race. Drinking alcohol may only be allowed after leaving the academy." Yuan Jun was a bit surprised. I wonder why Gu Yong came to this pavilion. Coincidentally, or for some other reason. Yuan Jun, whose nerves have started to become sensitive, doesn't really believe in coincidences at this moment. Gu Yong glanced at Lu Qinghua and asked, "Little girl, which gate are you under? When I was taking a walk, I didn't see you before. Tonight is the first time I've seen you." Gu Yong enjoys exercising in the morning and taking walks at night. It is well known that he works at the White Deer Academy, but he still has a slight impression of some young students he often encounters. Lu Qinghua responded with a slightly restrained tone, "Qing Mei Lin, under the tutelage of Li Xiongyan." Although restrained, she could say that she was a disciple of Li Xiongyan, and there was still a hint of confidence on Lu Qinghua's face. After all, Lu Qinghua carried Li Xiongyan's hard work. Gu Yong glanced at the two of them and asked, "Are you both under the command of Li Shunyan?" Yuan Jun and Lu Qinghua nodded coincidentally. Lu Qinghua thinks that this three elders may just be accustomed to chatting with people and relieving boredom. However, Yuan Jun was somewhat confused. Although he didn't know much about Gu Yong, he also understood that such a big shot wouldn't chat with people for no reason, especially strangers. Even if it's a chat to relieve boredom, it should still be an acquaintance. Gu Yong said, "There is a mysterious Lu Qinghua emerging from the Qingmei forest, with no trace. I wonder if you two and Lu Qinghua are familiar with each other." Yuan Jun replied, "She is Lu Qinghua, and also my senior sister." After a moment of confusion, Gu Yong looked seriously at Lu Qinghua and asked, "Who is he?" "He should be the key target of Li Shunyan's education to travel with you." Lu Qinghua glanced at Yuan Jun and smiled arrogantly, "His name is Yuan Jun, he is my sword attendant. Recently, my mood has been a bit chaotic, and he has to accompany me." His reputation has spread to the ears of the three elders, and Lu Qinghua feels a little proud. Gu Yong nodded meaningfully and smiled, This is a good sword attendant. Compared to the rough men in the green plum forest, he is still a good seedling. I used to think you were a little couple." Lu Qinghua's face turned slightly red and she reluctantly replied, "But he likes literary talent, not martial arts. In the green plum forest, he has also been wasting his time." Following Yuan Jun, Lu Qinghua suffered a lot of hidden losses. She had to take a small revenge on Yuan Jun, and her mood suddenly brightened. Gu Yong didn't ask Yuan Jun much why he didn't go to Kong Changji's door, because Gu Yong already knew that Yuan Jun entered the White Deer Academy only to find a more remote place to live an ordinary life and fulfill his duties as a spy. If he really went to the sect of Kong Changji, perhaps Yuan Jun would also become the legitimate disciple of Kong Changji, which is something Yuan Jun is unwilling to face. Gu Yong curiously asked Lu Qinghua, "So, Yuan Jun spends most of his time idle in the green plum forest, neglecting his cultivation and living a small life of idle clouds and wild cranes?" Lu Qinghua firmly replied, "It's like this. My master has also paid some small attention to him, but when I saw that he wasn't the right material, I gave up. Everyone has their own aspirations, and this is also helpless." Yuan Jun did not expect Lu Qinghua to have such a strong sense of revenge, and he would not understand that in fact, most girls have a strong sense of revenge. He has read extensively, but he has not explored women. Gu Yong was somewhat interested in Yuan Jun. He was able to kill Zhua Qingtang, and his natural cultivation level was also in Qingsheng. Among the human race, there were not many young Qingsheng masters. Having such strength indicates that one is not an ordinary spy, or even an extremely noble spy. The other elders all had their own legitimate disciples, but Gu Yong did not. Perhaps it was a whim to see which direction Yuan Jun would develop in the future, or maybe to find some fun for himself. He always takes walks his dog, meditates and practices all day long. As time goes by, he inevitably finds it boring. Essentially, Gu Yong enjoys socializing with young people. Yuan Jun is really pleasing to the eye and also very interesting. Gu Yong remembered what might happen in the future, and at this moment, he also had the idea of accepting his disciple in his heart. As for how chaotic the future will be, Gu Yong doesn't care at all. Gu Yong thought for a moment and said, "The return to the sea meeting is coming in half a month. I don't know what your plans are you just wanting to be a sword attendant?" Yuan Jun didn't expect Gu Yong to ask him this question. He pondered and replied, "Recently, senior sister's mood has been unstable. I'm just accompanying her. As for the return to the sea meeting, my talent is average and my strength is low, so I dare not think about that. After these days are over, I will continue to be idle, waste my time, and let nature take its course." Yuan Jun also knew in his heart that at least half of the spots for entering the White Deer Pavilion were predetermined by wealthy aristocrats in advance, and even more than 60% of the spots were predetermined. There were not many truly fair competition spots. This world is always particularly cruel to disciples from humble backgrounds. Gu Yong followed Yu Wenjun's words and chuckled lightly. Since you enjoy wasting time so much, I have a good idea to make you waste time in various ways. Yu Wenjun exclaimed curiously, do you have any good ideas? Gu Yong smiled and said, I have a big black dog, which is particularly fierce. You can come to my place and help me keep the dog, organize some books, and so on. Anyway, you like reading, and I have a lot of books there. Yu Wenjun was stunned on the spot, and so was Lu Qinghua. Gu Yong, who has always disliked accepting apprentices, showed such kindness to Yu Wenjun. Going to Gu Yong's dojo to raise a dog is a dream for many young people. Yu Wenjun pondered and said, your big black dog has a fierce temperament, and I'm afraid I can't handle it. Lu Qinghua was stunned again, not expecting that Yu Wenjun would still politely refuse this time, just like politely refusing himself. Gu Yong chuckled and said, you are too bookish. My big black dog may help you hone a bit of courage and spirit. For you, it's also a good thing, and for me, it can save me some trouble. Do you think it's good? Because this is the third elder, if Yu Wenjun continues to refuse, he will appear at a loss. Why did he say, but recently my master has made me my senior sister's sword attendant? Gu Yong smiled and said, this is simple. It messes up our mood. Everyone has this kind of situation, especially when the return to the sea is approaching. It is reasonable for your senior sister to be in a state of confusion at this time. Who makes your senior sister the hope of the green plum forest? Go back and tell Li Xiaonian that I will send a soothing scripture to his precious disciple, and you, tomorrow morning, will come to my place and raise a dog for me. Anyway, you shouldn't take it seriously in the green plum blossom forest. If you're just slacking off, it's much better to spend time with me than with Li Xiaonian. Yu Wenjun thought to himself, even if Gu Yong had made such a statement, Master wouldn't dare to refuse. Nodding, he said, oh, I see. I will try my best to help you keep the dog. Gu Yong chuckled and pointed to the sword, lightly tapping it onto Lu Qinghua's pure white forehead. A passage of scripture infused Lu Qinghua's divine consciousness. Leaving aside the effectiveness of this passage, relying solely on its authorship by Gu Yong would not raise doubts about its value. Lu Qinghua stood up, bowed deeply, and said devoutly, thank you very much for the gift from the three elders. Gu Yong responded confidently, there is no such thing as a gift. I use this passage of scripture to exchange for the free body of Yu Wenjun. We will be clear and not owe each other. The excitement of Lu Qinghua was indescribable, but despite the words, Gu Yong did indeed teach her and guide her in critical moments. This kindness is quite significant when calculated. Gu Yong stood up and stretched lazily, saying, I have to go back. I estimate that the Dharma Hall is at the White Deer Camp, and it is destined to achieve nothing. Tonight, it was quite a good night. Yu Wenjun stood up and bowed to each other. Upon hearing these words, Yu Wenjun understood Gu Yong's meaning and was shocked. Sure enough, as I speculated yesterday, there will be waves soon. Fortunately, whether by chance or by chance, Yu Wenjun has returned to the right track from the brink of exposure. The three elders have left, and we should also return to Qinyan Garden. Lu Qinghua glanced at Yu Wenjun carefully and said in a soft voice, what many people are concerned about is that you have succeeded. Why do you look unhappy at all? Yu Wenjun understood Lu Qinghua's meaning and thought for a moment before responding, because I haven't thought about this matter, I can't be happy or unhappy. After hearing this, Lu Qinghua immediately snorted coldly and said, you don't want to be shameless. If you get a good deal, you'll still be good. Yu Wenjun. The night is deep, let's go home. Lu Qinghua said, don't talk about us, talk about us. Although you are going to raise a dog tomorrow, you are still my sword attendant at this moment. Yu Wenjun was too lazy to defend himself and turned towards Qinyan Garden. Although Lu Qinghua was unhappy, he could only follow Yu Wenjun like a little sister who was angry. Sword attendant, hold the sword for me. If you don't take it, the sword is such a precious thing. As a dog owner, how can I be qualified to hold a sword for my senior sister? End of this chapter. Chapter 7. Holding the Knife. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 7. Holding the Knife. The next morning, in the morning. The sunrise in Qingyan Garden is not vibrant, with some vitality mixed in with the mist, perhaps because this place is too secluded. In the pavilion, there was a table of light meals, and Li Xiaoyan chewed it slowly. The corner of his eye had already noticed the restless emotions of Lu Qinghua and Yuan Jun. What happened? Lu Qinghua put down the dishes, pursed her lips, and whispered, "We sneaked out last night and strolled around the rest of the academy. I have been living in this Qingyan Garden for a long time and feel a bit bored. Please blame me, master." Li Xiaoyan glanced at Yuan Jun and asked, "Your senior sister has a pure mind and has not been too involved in worldly affairs. It's better for you to talk." Lu Qinghua revered her master in her heart, and even when some words reached her lips, she dared not speak. Most women in their 20s and 80s are like this. Yuan Jun put down his chopsticks and said, "While we were strolling, we met the third elder. I don't know if it was due to the third elder's sudden intention, or for other reasons, and we talked. The third elder asked me to go to his place to raise a dog. I have always heard of that big black dog, but I have never seen it before." Li Xiaoyan couldn't hold on anymore and stared at Yuan Jun, angry and laughing, asking, "Did Senior Gu Yong actually take a liking to you?" Yuan Jun paused and replied, "It should be like this. I also think it's a bit unbelievable. I said I was the senior sister's sword attendant, and he gave her a scripture that could soothe her mood, asking me to go to his place this morning. Changing one's family is a taboo in the White Deer Academy. Being a teacher for a day and a father for a lifetime is a great righteousness that most people cannot overcome." Li Xiaoyan smiled softly and said, "I don't think Senior Gu Yong's original words are so refined. Anyway, you have never been valued by me before. This is your chance. You go ahead." Yuan nodded and said, I will also visit you and senior sister frequently in Qingmei Forest in the future." Li Xiaoyan said, "There's no need to say these words. Go ahead. Senior Gu Yong may be a bit anxious at the moment. He's a rather childish senior. You should get along well with him when you go. Don't have too much scholarly spirit." Yuan Jun didn't procrastinate either, got up and bowed deeply to Li Xiaoyan before leaving. Lu Qinghua looked at Yuan Jun's departing figure and said somewhat reluctantly, "I just worked as a sword attendant for a day before leaving. Am I very unpopular?" Li Xiaoyan responded gently, "I have always been worried that even when it comes to the return to the sea, you will still be unable to calm your mind. As a result, you just sneaked out with Yuan Jun for a night and solved this matter. As a sword attendant, he has completed the task and has a satisfactory explanation for both you and me." Lu Qinghua said, "Will he also appear at the return to the sea meeting?" Li Xiaoyan said, "It's hard to say. Senior Gu Yong has a peculiar style of behavior. Maybe he does, maybe he doesn't. It all depends on Yuan Jun's nature." Lu Qinghua lowered her head and started eating, feeling lost in thought. Gu Yong lives in the back mountain of Bailu Academy, a simple square courtyard. Behind the courtyard is a rippling bamboo sea, and behind the bamboo sea is the towering Bailu Mountain. Yuan Jun arrived as promised, and as soon as he opened the courtyard door, he happened to meet Gu Yong. "Have you made it clear to Li Xiaoyan that you are here?" Gu Yongping said. Yuan Jun replied, "Master has made it clear to me that I want to live well with you." Gu Yong pouted and said with a smile, "This is also the place where I dislike Li Xiaoyan the most. Even though I don't value you, I still insist on saying a few words before leaving. Many people are trapped in worldly wisdom and cannot extricate themselves. Li Xiaoyan is the same, but it's a pity for his delicate roots." Yuan Jun didn't know how to answer, so he could only remain silent. Gu Yong took out a pair of jade bracelets from his pocket and handed them to Yu Wenjun, whispering, "Wear these bracelets, and the Black Lion won't resist you." Yu Wenjun put a bracelet on his left wrist and doubted slightly, "That's why I met you as soon as I opened the door." Gu Yong chuckled and said, "You're still smart. If you come rashly, the Black Lion may bite you to death." The bracelet is called Wujiang and is also a spatial artifact, but it needs to be worn for a period of time to absorb your breath before it can be used normally. Yu Wenjun followed Gu Yong into the courtyard and also saw this big black dog. His body was covered in shiny black hair, with strong limbs and a majestic aura. His golden pupils were like a pair of golden copper bells, and his forehead was adorned with a pair of ox horns, exuding a sense of domineering and aloofness that rushed towards him. Gu Yong blew a whistle, and the Black Lion came excitedly, circling around Yu Wenjun and Gu Yong 3 times, with a simple and lovely appearance. The Black Lion has excellent combat power and is invincible within Huangting territory. If you lead it in the future, no one will dare to trouble you. Yu Wenjun said, "That would be too ostentatious." Gu Yonggang wanted to criticize Yu Wenjun, thinking that Yu Wenjun himself was a spy and it was reasonable for him not to show off, so he had no choice but to give up. Saying, "I've inquired and you really like the book Qin Ming Ji." Yu Wenjun was slightly taken aback. He knew exactly what kind of books he liked to read, and he replied softly, "I can't even say I like them. The rest of the books are too dull, but the content in Qin Ming Ji is more interesting." Gu Yong led Yu Wenjun into the inner hall, where the decoration was solemn and elegant, neither full of gold and jade nor potted flowers and plants. The aroma of tea overflowed on the tea table, and a pot of good tea had just been brewed. Gu Yong knelt and sat on the futon, while Yu Wenjun stood aside. "There aren't so many formalities here. You can sit at the same table as me and enjoy tea together, as you please." Yu Wenjun was not polite either, so he sat across from Gu Yong. Gu Yong poured a cup of tea for Yu Wenjun, and Yu Wenjun clicked on the tea table, showing great politeness. "That night, I knew you were also a frequent tea drinker, and I have quite a lot of good tea here. In the future, you can drink slowly without asking me." Yu Wenjun obediently exclaimed, gradually developing a liking for Gu Yong, but he never let go of his guard. Gu Yong said, "How do you view the return to the sea meeting?" The meeting of returning to the sea is divided into literary and military examinations. The literary examination examines Ci and Fu, while the military examination compares the true elements. Those who can participate in the return to the sea meeting are all the leaders under their respective clans, like Lu Qinghua. Yu Wenjun humbly said, "I have limited talent and knowledge, so there is no need for me to return to the sea. Being able to raise a dog in such a secluded courtyard is already enough." The Black Lion outside let out a roar, not a barking dog, but the roar of a tiger, which stirred Yu Wenjun's mind. Gu Yong chuckled and said, "You heard me. With such a lack of ambition, even the Black Lion can't bear to listen." Yu Wenjun asked, "Why me? Why did you choose me?" Gu Yong chuckled lightly and said, "I see you as pleasing to the eye, otherwise how complicated do you think it is?" Yu Wenjun paused and said, "It makes so much sense, I don't know how to refute it." Gu Yongwen said, "The more you want to worship under my door, the more I ignore it. The more you love and ignore me, the more I like it. Would this be very cheap?" Yu Wenjun said, "This is probably the character of an elegant scholar, but it's not very elegant to say this from your mouth." Gu Yongla chuckled and said, "There aren't many other things at Bailu Academy, but there are more right and wrong. When you come to me, many people already know. Essentially, you are already at the forefront of Bailu Academy, and many people will wonder what kind of person you are. There will also be people coming to investigate, whether you are willing to participate in the Return to the Sea event or not, it's not up to you. I'm not worried about you, after all, I have read many Taoist scriptures. You will encounter several competitors in the martial arts competition. I won't say much about who it is. Unprepared assessments are the most suspenseful. Yuan Jun also understands that there is no impermeable wall in the world, and the waves have already begun. Taking a sip of tea, he said, but when I first arrived here, no one would think that I would be a competitor to some people. Gu Yong smiled and said, but I will worry about you, and the others think the same way. Being outside of things is something for the elderly, not something you should do at your age. Yuan Jun smiled shyly and silently took a sip of tea. Gu Yong asked, do you prefer knives or swords? During the martial arts test, you always need to have a weapon that you are equally skilled in. From now on, there is still time to cultivate you. Sword emphasizes the meaning of a gentleman, while sword is domineering and cold-blooded. Yuan Jun remembered his senior sister Lu Qinghua and said, senior sister Qinghua is practicing swordsmanship, so I'll choose a sword. A slender and exquisite Dao is very good. Since we have to choose, there is no need for similarity. Gu Yong waved his hand slightly, and in the arsenal, there was a black ceremonial sword that roared and came to hold Gu Yong's hand. He clasped it on the tea table and said, this sword is called Duan Yen. High quality, enough for you to use. In my study, there are many techniques that you can freely choose from. With your intelligence, I probably don't need any specific guidance anymore. Yuan Jun glanced at Duan Yen and asked shyly, would this be too direct? Gu Yong stood up and planned to go out for a walk with his dog. He said, let's go straight with everything. You will understand in the future. Practice well in the next few days, and do the dog walk in a few days. No one dares to come here and trouble you. Yuan Jun exclaimed and reached out to grab the handle of Duan Yen's knife. End of this chapter. Chapter 8. First Encounter. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 8. First Encounter. The study was a bit dim, and outside the window was the ridge of the White Deer Mountain. There were abundant flowers and wild grass, and the small trees struggled to grow under the shade of the big trees. Yuan Jun wiped the gaps in the bookshelf, and some fine dust intertwined with the fragrance of the book. On the contrary, a kind of ancient charm permeated. The book scrolls in the bookshelf are mostly Buddhist scriptures, and the study of the three elders is a place that many young people dream of coming to. Most of the practices in the White Deer Academy are dull and monotonous, known as honing willpower and character. However, the upper-class martial arts have already been occupied by the children of the powerful or extremely talented individuals. These types of people are ultimately only a few, and most people can only silently practice without knowing where their future lies. Yuan Jun flipped through several scriptures about swordsmanship and found them dull and uninteresting. His moves were not as extensive and profound as he had imagined, probably because he had practiced the green dragon technique. Looking at the rest of the techniques, he found them somewhat superficial. After walking around the study, Yuan Jun did not choose his favorite sword. Eating and drinking tea are optional, but cultivation never compromises. Yuan Jun did not force himself. After leaving his study, Yuan Jun began to climb the mountain. Bailu Mountain was not majestic and magnificent, but a mountain of no size. In the early morning, the mist on Bailu Mountain was heavy. From the first day he arrived at Bailu Academy, Yuan Jun was thinking about when to climb to Bailu Mountain and see. There are no treasures in the mountains, it's just that scholars like to climb high and look far. I didn't climb Bailu Mountain before because the Qingmei Forest was a distance away from Bailu Mountain. Secondly, at the foot of Bailu Mountain, important figures from the academy lived there. If I happened to encounter them, Yuan Jun didn't know what to do. Duan Yen is a good name, and this knife is also a good one. Yuan Jun thought to himself that the sword technique he practiced must be worthy of the name Duan Yen. Duan Yen would be like sealing the throat at the sight of blood. He felt that even if he didn't deliberately practice a certain knife technique, he held a broken mind in his hand, and ordinary people were not opponents. The foundation is too solid, it can be more capricious. Halfway up the mountain, there is a flat area where big trees are sprouting shade and there are no flowers or plants growing under the feet. Apart from the withered leaves accumulated year-round, there is almost nothing else in the mellow shade. Yuan Jun stopped, sat on the ground, meditated, and began to practice. The Qinglong technique is a simple skill at first glance, but after careful cultivation, one will discover its vastness and profoundness. Even though Yuan Jun has reached the realm of Chengsheng, he still feels that the Qinglong technique he has comprehended is only superficial. Just like reading, reviewing the past and learning new things, every time you read the same book, there will always be different insights. For Yuan Jun, reading is also a kind of silent cultivation. Borrowing stones from other mountains can be used to attack jade, but this secret has always been hidden in his heart. After a long time, Yuan Jun opened his eyes and took a slight breath, which turned into a knife-like gesture. He slightly trimmed the branches of the oak tree in front of him, and the oak tree also had a slightly more upright and delicate feeling. As long as he is willing, the sword intent can be derived at any time. There is still some distance from the mountaintop, but in fact, the farthest distance from the mountaintop is not at the foot of the mountain, but halfway up the mountain. Many people are unable to walk halfway up the mountain. However, Yuan Jun met the person descending the mountain here. She is a girl, about 16 or 17 years old, with beautiful black hair and a graceful figure. Her eyes are as cold as black gemstones, and her appearance is lively and ethereal. Her temperament ranges from the gentle and clear of a small town girl to the indifferent and distant of a noblewoman. In terms of age, she should be younger than senior sister Qinghua, but no matter how she looks at her, she has a maturity that does not match her age. Yuan Jun bowed slightly and said, "I, Yuan Jun, have seen you before." Jing Peiyao did not directly respond to Yuan Jun, but first glanced at the trimmed oak tree and then at Duan Yen in Yuan Jun's hand. Then he whispered, "Are you the disciple of Senior Guyong?" Yuan Jun did not expect the news to be revealed so quickly. How could Guyong be? A person who was used to being careless suddenly had an apprentice, and the news naturally spread like wildfire. He nodded slightly. Jing Peiyao said, "Your sword intention is very good, and it has never been unsheathed." Yuan Jun exclaimed, "It was just a last-minute uprising, and I dare not accept this evaluation." "Ask, what is the girl's name?" Jing Peiyao felt that this person had some meaning and did not take the opportunity to discuss scriptures and teachings, but only wanted to know her name. Jing Peiyao. Although the other party's attitude was gentle, Yuan Jun could still sense a bit of arrogance. It seemed that she was not a very easy-going girl to deal with, but rather Qinghua's senior sister was more friendly and lovely. Yuan Jun suddenly asked, "How is the scenery on the mountain?" Jing Peiyao said calmly, "It's not that bad. Do you also want to go up and take a look?" Yuan Jun thought for a moment and replied, "I originally wanted to go and take a look, but you have already come down from above. I don't think it's necessary anymore." Jing Peiyao frowned slightly and asked in confusion, "Why is this?" Yuan Jun replied, "I thought I would find a good martial arts technique in Senior Guyong's study, but it didn't work out. I thought I would be the first person to climb the mountain this morning, but even though you came down from the mountain, I still didn't achieve it. A bit disappointing." Jing Peiyao chuckled lightly and said, "You are quite interesting, even more interesting than Senior Guyong. No wonder you became his disciple." Yuan Jun didn't understand his intention, he just said this as he pleased. "Will we go down the mountain together?" Yuan Jun asked. Jing Peiyao suddenly felt dissatisfied. If it weren't for the pleasing appearance of Yuan Jun, she would have frowned long ago and said in a deep voice, "Do you want to come down the mountain with me and talk to me?" With such a cliché trick, how could you keep quiet and claim that the scenery on the mountaintop is a bit disappointing? It's very hypocritical. Unlike Lu Qinghua, Jing Peiyao is truly the dream lover of many people at Bailu Academy. Her popularity and reputation are all above Lu Qinghua's. However, Jing Peiyao doesn't like the ups and downs of life and dislikes those who like her getting close to her. Ugliness has ugly troubles, beauty also has beautiful troubles. Yuan Jun was confused for a moment, but he probably knew what Jing Peiyao meant. He responded softly, when I was serving as a sword attendant for senior sister Lu Qinghua before, I wanted to go out for a walk and she wanted to follow me. I said that was not good and would cause rumors. This time I asked you, it's the same. If you don't want to go down the mountain together, I can wait until later. The girl is indeed delicate and elegant, but she is a bit too proud. This is not good and can easily disrupt her mood. Deliberate pursuit of being worldly often backfires. Jing Peiyao did not expect Yuan Jun to preach to her, nor did she expect Yuan Jun to be Lu Qinghua's sword attendant. Lu Qinghua was somewhat famous in the White Deer Academy, and many people knew that Jing Peiyao had several connections with her. She ignored Yuan Jun and went down the mountain alone. Yuan Jun stood in place, admiring the back of Jing Peiyao as she left. It was indeed a stunning sight in the world. He once again grasped the handle of Duan Yan's knife, intending to break the thought. The sunlight gradually shone, and the mist in the mountains slowly dissipated. Yuan Jun stood halfway up and saw the scenery on the mountaintop, which was somewhat delicate, even more delicate than the girl's face. But she's not as proud as a girl. End of this chapter. Chapter 9. I can play well. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 9. I can play well. Gu Yong returned from walking his dog and made a special trip to his study. He carefully examined the books on knife techniques and found that there were traces of flipping through them. The rest of the techniques remained unchanged. The young man is so arrogant. I really don't know what kind of martial arts you are practicing. These martial arts can be displayed in my study, and if they can enter my eyes, they are not bad. Surprisingly, you haven't even taken a liking to them. The black lion wandered back and forth in the courtyard tirelessly. Yuan Jun entered the courtyard, and the black lion ran over affectionately. Yuan Jun rubbed the horns on the black lion's head, calming his mood. Entering the room, the three elders had just sat on a futon, holding a teapot in one hand. The corner of their eye glanced at Yuan Jun and whispered, "The matter with Sua Qingtang won't end like this." Yuan Jun's mind remained calm as he slowly approached Gu Yong, sat down slowly, set Duan Yen aside, and reached out to play with the tea set. He said, "I walked to the mountainside of Bailu Mountain, but did not reach the summit. I met a girl on the mountainside named Jing Peiyao. Who is her disciple?" Gu Yong thought that Yuan Jun's focus was on the follow-up of the Zhua Qingtang incident, but it ended up involving Jing Peiyao. That girl is not a disciple of anyone's family, but she can rank among the top during her return to the sea and smoothly enter the White Deer Pavilion. Suspected to be relatives with the dean. The background of the family is currently unknown, and many people have investigated the girl's background without any clues. Yuan pondered and said, "Jing Peiyao is not someone's disciple, but she can roam around the dean's study and freely search for various skill scrolls. No wonder she is so arrogant." Gu Yong began to wash the tea, and the tea cup was filled with hot air. To wash the tea, he gently soaked the tea leaves in boiling white water, and then poured out the white water. Later, I officially brewed 2 cups of tea and handed one to Yuan Jun. Yuan Jun tapped the tea table and gave Gu Yong a gentle glance, saying, "The matter of Zhua Qingtang is a long-term trouble, and there will be no result for the time being. Once some truths are exposed, they may be shocking. The academy is a quiet place, naturally not disturbed by those complicated government affairs." Gu Yong picked up the tea cup with both hands and took a sip. After putting down the cup, he said, "Did you fight with Jing Peiyao?" Yuan Jun shook his head and said, "No." Gu Yong puzzled and said, "What is the general process of the matter?" Yuan Jun explained in detail the process of the incident, with a gloomy expression on his face. After hearing this, Gu Yong looked at Yuan Jun with some disbelief and gave a thumbs up, saying, "You're very good. Being able to make Jing Peiyao talk to you so much indicates that the girl may be interested in you. The faces of the two of you are also very well matched, Both of you have a certain degree of resemblance to ghosts and God's immortal Bone Dao Feng. Yuan Jun puzzled and said, is it because she doesn't talk to others? Gu Yanglaishan smiled and said, I often hang out with the girl's family and rarely talk to men. Even if we talk, it's all about the academy and there's no idle conversation. She and you are already chatting, this girl is very interesting. In terms of appearance alone, Jing Peiyao can indeed marry into the family of princes, nobles, generals, and prime ministers. Many people like Jing Peiyao, especially Xiao Chu. She is the dream lover of many men. Yuan Jun asked curiously, can she marry into the imperial family? Gu Yong pursed his lips and said with a smile, I've always thought you're not trapped in love. How come after meeting Jing Peiyao, you're not like yourself anymore? Yuan Jun hesitated to speak. Gu Yongyan said, it doesn't matter to me who she will marry in the future, but she is one of your main competitors during your return to the sea. You haven't noticed any of the martial arts in the study. What are your plans for the return to the sea meeting? Yuan Jun originally did not want to enter the returning to the sea event. The matter of Zhua Qingtang no longer allows Yuan Jun to continue to be a recluse. If he cannot be a recluse, he should become a wise person. It is also a good choice to make a great name for himself at the returning to the sea event. Coincidentally, Jing Peiyao was also there, experiencing the charm of a few young masters in the academy, which was also quite good. Yuan Jun replied, Duan Yen is already sharp enough. I have some rough and simple knife techniques, which are enough to deal with the return to the sea meeting. If you learn the knife technique in the study, you may accidentally harm your life. Gu Yong thought to himself, if you don't like it, then say you don't like it. There are many strange reasons. Don't let me down then. I have no intention of winning or losing, but I don't want to see you lose either. Yuan Jun nodded slightly. Half a month passed in a blink of an eye. During this half-month, Yuan Jun led the Black Lion to take a stroll around various secluded places in the White Deer Academy in the morning and evening as usual, but he never went to the Green Plum Forest. In the hearts of many people, Yuan Jun has already become familiar. Perhaps due to holding the Black Lion, there was no one to trouble Yuan Jun, and naturally no one privately challenged Yuan Jun to find out. Today is a big day for the White Deer Academy. The return to the sea meeting is located in a small building in the middle of the lake. Although it is called a small building, it actually covers an area of more than 10 miles, with unique scenery and a long-lasting charm. First was the literary test, followed by the martial arts test. Those who were not qualified to participate in the return to sea gathering gathered on the shore, watching from a distance. In the middle of the crowd, there was a small path separated. Many prominent figures who were usually invisible, along with their proud disciples, passed through this path and entered the small building in the center of the lake amidst the attention of the crowd. Entering the lake means passing by the wind, and some young people with strong vanity will deliberately show off their dragonflies floating on the water in front of many female students. The young students who were watching were discussing one after another, while the men were commenting on the appearance of the women who participated in the return to the sea. The women were more profound, appreciating the sounds and smiles of some people, and then daydreaming in their hearts, whispering to their female companions. Yuan Jun accompanied Lu Qinghua and walked at the back. Gu Yong and Li Xiongyan did not enjoy the ceremony, so they did not come. At this moment, many men who longed for Lu Qinghua in their hearts began to shout her name, giving her a boost in popularity. Amidst the commotion, Lu Qinghua glanced at Yuan Jun and said, Junior brother, I'm a bit worried about Wen Shi. Can you secretly help me then? Yuan Jun puzzled and said, what are you doing here? Why don't you read more lyrics and Fu Daozong beforehand? Lu Qinghua frowned slightly and said, I have a headache when reading, and I can't continue reading. Yuan Jun let out a faint breath and said, I'll take care of it then. Lu Qinghua felt relieved in her heart and said lightly, you can help me in the civil test, and I will help you in the martial test. I am very good at fighting now. Yuan Jun did not respond. Senior sister can fight or not, and Yuan Jun does not want to know. He thinks it is better for girls to be gentle. Unconsciously, we arrived at the lake. Yuan Jun and Lu Qinghua made a light leap and arrived at the small building in the middle of the lake. Lu Qinghua's heart sank. She felt that when she was riding against the wind just now, Yuan Jun's true element was not weaker than hers. Even if she followed the three elders, it was impossible to achieve such progress in realm cultivation in the short term, which was somewhat unreasonable. Yuan Jun was unaware of the surprise and speculation in Senior Qinghua's heart, and as always, his heart remained calm. End of this chapter. Chapter 10. Like you. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 10. Like you. Kong Changji and others stood outside the Wenhua house, waiting quietly. The students who participated in the return to the sea had already entered the Wenhua house. As a leading literary figure in the White Deer Academy, Kong Changji naturally did not worry about the literary exams of his proud students, but rather a bit worried about the martial arts exams. With hands folded and lower abdomen flat, I thought to myself whether those two brothers could take the lead in the literary examination. As long as they could take the lead, there was no need to participate in the martial arts examination and they could smoothly enter the White Deer Pavilion. Kong Changji did not have the confidence to take the lead, like Jing Peiyao and Hui Shan, who were also talented in poetry and prose. The principle of having no first place in literature is deeply understood by Kong Changji. Outside the Wenhua house, there was a complete silence. Even though I was worried, I could only stop here and wait silently. The elder and the second elder were the same. The White Deer Pavilion is nominally part of the White Deer Academy, but in reality, it is a place for the royal family to recruit talents. Junyan, who emerged from the White Deer Pavilion throughout history, did well in the temple. In the White Deer Pavilion, there was indeed a famous figure, such as the current Prime Minister Chiu Qing. The White Deer Academy can be roughly divided into three levels. The first level is that many people follow the crowd, and the second level is that the disciples of famous teachers, such as Lu Qinghua and Su Huanshan, have a smooth career path in politics and the military. The third one is the people who come out of the White Deer Pavilion and can directly enter the eyes of the royal family. As long as they abide by their true intentions, their future is definitely limitless. In the Wenhua room, there are a total of 64 students participating in the cultural examination. These 60.4 people are all well-known figures of the White Deer Academy. Of course, except for Yuan Jun, who has only recently gained fame and was previously unknown. The main examiner is an elderly man with white hair, named Guan Shanhai, wearing a white cloak and a rosy complexion. It is said that he has lived for 1,000 years. Beside him were two approximately 6 or 7-year-old bookboys holding scrolls. After the students sat down in order, Guan Shanhai didn't get up from the cattail. He half opened his eyes and scanned the 60.4 people, saying, "Each of you has a different exam paper. You can't talk to each other. I'm here and I can see it clearly." After saying these words, Guan Shanhai closed his eyes and spoke in a voice that was not as old as before, but rather had a clear and gentle breeze like the moon and stars. Lu Qinghua became nervous. Guan Shanhai was a living saint of the White Deer Academy, with an unfathomable cultivation. He heard Kong Changji crying and shouting in the past, but was unable to make Guan Shanhai accept him as his disciple. She nervously glanced at Yuan Jun next door. Two bookboys walked down the stage and distributed the papers in order. The young faces of the bookboys relaxed the oppressive atmosphere a lot. The bookboy walked up to Lu Qinghua and gently placed the scroll on the desk. Lu Qinghua glanced at it and saw that it was filled with historical allusions that she was unaware of, leaving her completely bewildered. Yuan Jun is doing well here. After taking the exam paper, he started writing. In terms of extensive reading, Yuan Jun is naturally inferior to Song Mingyu and Song Minghui under Kong Changji's leadership. In the Wenhua room, the aroma of books was overflowing, and the scholar with literary character even approached the exam paper and took a deep breath of the scholarly atmosphere. Lu Qinghua first glanced at Yuan Jun and found that his writing speed was extremely fast, flowing smoothly without any thought. She envied him tightly. Although the scores in the civil examination are not good, as long as the scores in the military examination are excellent, there is still a chance to enter the White Deer Pavilion. However, if one is ignorant of the civil examination, there is no chance for the military examination. The most indispensable thing in this world is a man. Lu Qinghua was truly introverted and whispered, "Junior brother, what should I do? This essay test is too complicated, and I simply don't know how to answer it." If it weren't for the urgency, Lu Qinghua wouldn't have secretly transmitted messages under the cover of Guanshan Haiyan. The corner of my eye caught a glimpse of the living sage and realized that he had not moved, but his mind had slightly calmed down. Yuan Jun has finished answering the exam questions, but he did not submit the paper because he did not want to be the first person to submit it. In secret, he replied, "Don't panic, sit upright, pretend to write, and then remain motionless. No matter what happens, don't be surprised." Upon hearing this, Lu Qinghua followed suit, her delicate jade hands clenched onto the pen, and in an instant, her paper was filled with words. This was Yuan Jun's exam paper. Her exam papers have been transferred to Yuan Jun's desk. She almost screamed and tried her best to control her tense and stimulating emotions, whispering in secret, "Junior brother, when did you learn to transform?" Yuan Jun began answering the questions for Lu Qinghua and responded slightly, "I will answer most of the questions for you, and you will be fooling yourself with the rest. Don't touch my paper at this moment." Lu Qinghua nodded obediently and stared at Yuan Jun's exam paper seriously, as if she really knew everything. After reading for a long time, she found that her junior brother's handwriting was really good, not to mention exquisite craftsmanship, but it had a soft yet strong charm. After a long time, the test paper quickly transferred to Yuan Jun's desk, and Lu Qinghua's test paper returned. Upon closer inspection, the handwriting on it was in Zanhua Xiaozhuan, which was quite exquisite. Lu Qinghua was extremely impressed by his junior brother and asked curiously, "How did you know that my handwriting was in the small seal script of Zanhua? Why did you write so well again? The handwriting corresponds to each other, and there may be no trace of favoritism or fraud even in the mountains and seas." Yuan Jun's response was simple. "We have already committed crimes against the wind, can we stop talking nonsense?" Lu Qinghua closed the door, pouted in grievance, then picked up her pen and began to daydream. "I thought the first person to submit the paper would be either Song Mingyu or Song Minghui, but the result was not. The first person to submit the paper was Xiao Chu, a disciple of the second elder. Not long after Xiao Chu submitted his papers, he became the brothers of the Song family. Next are Su Huanshan and Jing Peiyao. Yuan Jun submitted the paper after Jing Peiyao. Gradually, 60.4 people submitted their papers in order, and Lu Qinghua was not the last one to do so. The last one was a young man with a strong physique. When submitting the papers, he was covered in cold sweat, and his grades were not very good. Guan Shanhai half opened his eyes again and said, 2 hours later, I came here to know my ranking. In the end, 30.2 people, as usual, did not have the opportunity to participate in the martial arts test. As these words were spoken, some students sighed helplessly and walked out of the Wenhua room feeling extremely depressed. Arriving outside, the Song brothers walked up to Kong Changji with a face full of spring breeze and reported their safety. Xiao Chu and Su Huanshan walked up to Elder De and Elder Air, respectively, with a slight smile, indicating that they were safe and sound. Some people, when they approached the teacher, looked dejected. The White Deer Pavilion is right in front of them, but they cannot take that crucial step. Yuan Jun and Lu Qinghua walked together to a corner of the lake, where the spring breeze and willows filled the lake with ripples. At this moment, Lu Qinghua whispered, "Junior brother, can you estimate my ranking?" Yuan Jun thought for a moment and said, it should be between 15 and 20. Lu Qinghua smiled happily, and her most worried thing was easily resolved. Next, all she needed to do was face the martial arts test with peace of mind. Her beautiful eyes glanced at Yuan Jun's Duanyan and curiously asked, what about junior brother's ranking? Yuan Jun said, I don't know, I just got one question wrong. It depends on whether the others are all right. Lu Qinghua looked at Yuan Jun with a face full of admiration and said, what are you carrying in your stomach? I have read your exam paper and I don't even know a single question on it. Yuan Jun didn't know how to answer, so he remained silent. Lu Qinghua pouted and said, when you were my sword attendant before, you had a disdainful expression on your face. But now you still despise me like this. I can help you with the martial arts test. I'm at least your senior sister, can't you be more polite? Yuan Jun replied slightly, I just don't know how to answer you. Lu Qinghua. At this moment, Jing Peiyao also arrived at the lake, dressed in a white dress, with long black and beautiful hair, and a cold temperament like a solitary moon. Lu Qinghua is not a warm-hearted person either. She just feels that her master and senior Gu Yong have not come, and she and her junior brother appear alone. Jing Peiyao also appears alone without the accompaniment of the dean. Lonely people are always prone to resonance. Lu Qinghua greeted, how have you been, senior sister Peiyao? Jing Peiyao walked up to Lu Qinghua and smiled slightly, saying, it's okay. Yuan Jun watched from the side and noticed that the way Jing Peiyao smiled was quite attractive. Lu Qinghua enthusiastically introduced, his name is Yuan Jun, and he is a disciple of the Third Elder's sect. He is so lucky that many people think that the Third Elder does not accept disciples. Jing Peiyao nodded slightly to Yuan Jun, as she had already met him in the mountains that morning. Yuan Jun only nodded slightly, without any unnecessary response. Lu Qinghua asked curiously, what is the estimated score of the senior sister's essay exam? Jing Peiyao naturally ranks among the top, which is beyond doubt, but Lu Qinghua still wants to hear Jing Peiyao speak out in person. I don't know, I made a mistake on a question. It depends on whether the others are all right. I guess the Song brothers are tied for first place. Lu Qinghua looked at Yuan Jun in surprise, then at Jing Peiyao, almost revealing it. Senior sister is really talented. I was a bit wrong and I need to compete for breath in the martial arts test. I hope I won't meet such a skilled expert like senior sister then. Jing Peiyao felt that something should have happened just now, but she didn't have the habit of delving deeper into it. Smiling, he said, I have heard that my junior sister's Qingming sword energy is gradually entering a beautiful state, and she will surely sweep the crowd. Lu Qinghua smiled shyly and said, senior sister, you're too serious. I can't do the civil test, but I hope it's all in the martial arts test. Senior sister is the real expert, and I've always felt inferior. Jing Peiyao is indeed a master, with a cultivation level close to Qingsheng. Under the same cultivation level, it depends on the cultivation techniques being practiced. However, Lu Qinghua's Qingming sword energy is truly advantageous in the same realm, as many people know. Yuan Jun remained silent from beginning to end. In fact, he wanted to talk to Jing Peiyao, but he didn't know where to start. The last encounter in the mountains was not so pleasant. However, Jing Peiyao took the initiative to speak to Yuan Jun and said, Senior Gu Yong has not opened a sect for many years. Now that you are a legitimate disciple, why doesn't he accompany you to this small building in the middle of the lake? Everyone knows that Li Xiaoyan dislikes rituals, otherwise he wouldn't have taught in a humble place like the Green Plum Forest. Gu Yong doesn't like rituals, but he should always care about Yuan Jun, this precious lump. Yuan Jun responded gently, the senior has already told me what to say. He doesn't want to see me lose. Since he has said everything, he doesn't think it's necessary to come and accompany me. I don't think it's necessary, that's too sentimental. Jing Peiyao let out a sigh and asked, how many mistakes did you make in your essay? Lu Qinghua pursed her lips and remained silent, afraid of revealing her true feelings. Yuan Jun whispered, just like you, I made one mistake. Jing Peiyao looked at the calm lake surface and replied, it's so clever. Yang Lu the lake water is clear, and people are no exception. End of this chapter.